The next piece I would like to read is a piece from my body of knowledge, Story of Illness and Disability, Healing in Life. It was first an online publication, and it got so much demand that it went to something we can hold in our hands. And I really like to encourage you to cross barriers and go check out some of the writing from the community of artists with disabilities. We get pigeonholed so often. I sent out my manuscript on Market Bag, which is a story about my son and I living in Africa. And the rejection came back, "I don't believe it." I'm thinking, well, what do you don't believe, that a person in a wheelchair go live in Africa and live, you know, the way I live was really something. But she just didn't believe that this could happen. So I'm encouraging you, please cross over and check out this other part of me, the disabled community, please. And they selected an excerpt from Homegrown, which I'll be reading some things in, and I'm just going to go with it. Dear Homegrown, oh yes, I did get to the Starbuck Market. It is full of fruits and vegetables, strangely beautiful colors and smells that would make an artist's palate envious. The bustling of the people and the bartering just pulled you right in, la la. But that is not what is on my mind right now. My wheelchair is down again. I had started my search for a musician to accompany in a reading. Everyone told me that I wouldn't be able to find a blues guitarist, but there was a guitarist who could play the blues. I was pointed to the Sidewalk Cafe, the only jazz club in Guyana. It was Thursday night. The house band was jamming, playing to a packed crowd of mostly Bantus, Guyanans who have been abroad, and expatriates. The musicians' demeanor, their dress, their slow walk across the stage, their preoccupation with the musician muse, tit-tit-tat-tat on half-filled bottles and tabletops were universal. The pianist, a short, stout man with stubby fingers you would think could dance, wouldn't dance across the keyboard, had a twinkle in his mahogany eyes and an international filing. He had moments of genius that transport us past the dominant sound of the evening, soft jazz. The horn player that night was a renegade from the States, a homegrown African who came to Guyana retreating from the aftermath of the 60s. He had the appearance of a willow, lean and blowing. His trumpet solo was reaches of Miles Davis. He put my big toe back into Lemert Park, and where homegrown jazz musicians go to jam after gigging in Los Angeles' finest alleyways. The guitarist, Herbie Marshall, could die to sit in a jam session like that in our yard. He drools when he speaks of our homegrown musicians. After the intermission, he glided onto the stage and worked in a few blues chords on his guitar for me to sample. Herbie will do just fine behind my reading, just fine, even though he rocks like a rock and roller. Homegrown, I even found a lead on a master drummer for She Is Me, my piece on how the disabled are treated in Africa. This spot, the Sidewalk Cafe, could conceivably become a watering hole for me. It's eclectic, friendly, and accessible. It was a great night, so great that my friends and I continued on to a disco to hear a reggae band. Homegrown, we get to the club, right? My host, Vic, who was a little bit tipsy, bounced out of the car with rhythms of jazz still playing in his ears and headed for the trunk of the car to retrieve my chair. There was a tropical cheer in the night air, yet all the windows was rolled down. We were hot to trot. Suddenly, Vic popped back at the window like a robber. Morse curled dewdrops of desperation was clinging to his mustache. He was panting as if he had just run a 100-yard dash. Riua, your wheelchair is not there. We laughed, thinking it was the liquor dripping. Diane sucked the wind through her teeth and said, "Don't bother. I'll get it myself. The men, they can't do anything for themselves. The men should stay home with their mamas." Her big bone body leaped out of the back seat like a feather blowing in the air of a backhand dismissal. She continued, "We women have to do everything." Within an instant, she returned with her eyes expanded saucer-like. "There's no chair." I reached into everyone's eyes to listening denial. "What do you mean, no chair? What?" Diane's hand flopped with each word as if it would help me hold on to the meaning. "God, oh God, there's no chair. It's not in the truck, oh God." What? It must have fallen out along the way now. And we didn't hear it, I whimpered. I knew Vic's car trunk wasn't quite empty. He had to maneuver things around to make room. The small wheel hung out over the bumper. The hood bounced up and down as we raced to the club, talking above the rattles. Still, can you perceive the fright I carried as we retraced our path? Before I had noticed the darkness of night or the numerous potholes, we moved gingerly down the street as if we were leading a procession to a wake. I felt if I was the person they were going to bury. I was quietly frantic. My inner voice conversation went, how will the other cars avoid my wheelchair in this dumb line? Bump 11. If you can't find it, how will I go to the bathroom? What, bump 27, am I going to do? What if someone has found it and taken it home and turned it into a fruit cart? Or what if someone has run over it and killed himself, or worse, damaged my chair? What, bump 31, will I do? Moving on 3 wheels was a piece of cake. Did I complain too much? Guyana without a wheelchair? I went into a meditative rock and watch. Diane and Vic rocked in sympathy too. Even the car rocked as we inched down the street. Then just before my sad face was about to break, we spotted lying on his side. My chariot's scuffy metal grabbed a hold of the stars. Their union alerted Vic. We released a collective sigh, shoo, becoming hilarious ecstatic, full of chatter. I gave thanks. I thank you. Vic turned the car around. The joy of the night was back on track. We stepped into the club, lit up, matching the Christmas lights strung lavishly across the outdoor patio, laughing and talking loudly. Luckily, I was in my wheelchair because I was laughing so hard that I would have fallen down if I was been walking. Our mood was contagious. Soon the sluggish place awakened. The band started playing an upbeat tune, a mixture of reggae and soca. It made us want to get up on our feet. We danced, ate, drank a little too much, and shared silly conversation that always led back to the wheelchair in my life, ha, 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 without it. A few hours later, we decided to call it a night and climbed into the car for our return home. We bounced along Georgetown cavity streets with our ears wide open. The wheelchair tumbled out again, no problem. We howled and retrieved it. They dropped me off at my apartment. Daylight come and me want to go home. I was too stimulated to sleep. So I grabbed my book and glasses and quiet my energy down. The covers were turned back on my bed. Homegrown, I was dancing over to the dresser to switch the fan on to get a little air. Come, Mr. Tellyman and telly me, in the middle of a finger pop. My large right wheel flew across the room off beat. I was thrown to the floor, scraping my right side, bumping my head against the table, sending my bed lamp crashing to the floor. The room turned dark. For about 5 minutes, I gave up and just laid there on my wheel, massaging my temples, reassuring my heart. It was a struggle to pick up the tune. De, di, sa, de, oh, but managed. Soreness shoved aside. I examined my chair, discovered half of my spokes torn apart and my release button damaged. My ancestors' wings lifted me up onto the bed, and I've been sitting ever since, unstrung. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have quite a few social activist artists in here. I would, want to say, really glad everyone's here. Ed, who's worked on a film for the Towers, and again, S. Pearl, who has done the film The Healing Passage, and then Linda, who's from Rancho Los Amigos, is here. She put on a production every year for performing artists with disability. And one year I went there, and it was so heartfelt. I was just like so moved by it that I went up to her that day and gave her my card. Next time I want to be in this. And believe it, she called me. And it was just a great experience. I remember when the little, what's her name, Paige, was, we all got singing numbers. It was an unbelievable experience. And she has legs that are cut off, and she was orchestrating the song. And I didn't know this, but as soon as the curtain opened, I saw her big frown face. I said, "Oh, you're not going to cry right now, are you? You're not going to cry on this stage." It just broke my heart. I mean, not broke it, but fed it. And I want to thank for the good work you're doing out there. And there's so many more that I'm missing. Jamal, and Lee. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Angie. Thank you, Angie. She loaned me her computer.